Welcome to the Collaboration for Innovation Google Hangout on Air. I'm Ann Ware, and I will serve as your moderator today. Let me get on screen here. There we go. As your moderator today, I currently serve as the project director for the Collaboration for Innovation work, which is a collaborative approach body of work between the Consortium for School Networking and the Panasonic Foundation. And I will serve as your moderator today. Let me move back to the screen. As you can see there, now that we're back on the screen, this collaborative work between the Panasonic Foundation and COSN supports work that's being done by 15 district leadership teams, made up of about 74 leaders who are committed, as it says here on the screen, to breaking the links between poverty, race, and educational outcomes by working to improve teaching and learning for today's students and for today's educators. These 15 districts are made up of small, medium, and large student populations, and they have two main areas of focus that we can see here on the screen. One is the scaling implementation of the Common Core state standards and those related assessments with effective professional learning communities and online communities of practice. And the second is to increase students' engagement in learning through a digital transformation in a 21st century learning environment. These districts are participating in a hybrid professional learning opportunity. They met face-to-face in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District in March of this year, and they have been collaborating online in this online community of practice towards the goals that we had already mentioned. With us today is the Community Consolidated School District 93 of Illinois, and Dr. Bill Shields is with us, Dr. David Hill, Dr. Murray Hoffman, and Tony Schorf are with us. And I'm going to go back to the camera now and turn it over to Bill. Bill, if you would share with us a little bit about your district and introduce your team.
Good afternoon, Ann. We appreciate this opportunity to be on this webinar and to be working with some of the other districts that were part of the C4I conference in Charlotte. With me this afternoon, I have Dr. Murray Hoffman, and as you mentioned, she's our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and she was part of our team that went on the site visit. We have Mr. Tony Schorf, and Tony is our instructional technology person, has done an awful lot to help our district to achieve its goals with our one-to-one. And we believe we have Dr. David Hill. He's at a state conference, so he's going to try to join us, but it's all going to depend on the workshops and what the day provides. Sure. And just a little bit about our district. First of all, you know, Illinois has about 860 school districts, and our districts are divided into unit districts, which are typically pre-K through 12. We have high school districts, and then we have elementary school districts. District 93, we're an elementary district, so we have 9 schools. We have 2 middle schools, 6 elementary, and 1 pre-K or early childhood center. So we're about 4,000 students. We have a great deal of diversity in our district, and probably about 28% of our student population is in that poverty level. So that's a little bit of some information about our school district and about the team that will be working with everybody this afternoon.
Thanks, Bill, so much for introducing your team and letting us know a little bit about the student population that you have. On the screen you see here are just examples of the types of things that the Community Consolidated School District 93 will be talking with us about today. And I'll just mention them briefly. They'll share some examples about how they are working collaboratively with teacher groups, maybe with unions. Some recommended approaches for doing just exactly that work. When we were in Charlotte-Mecklenburg School System in March, we saw a project called Opportunity Culture, Project Lift, where they were providing some flexibility to schools and how they would staff their schools and even down to payment. And our question to Bill and his team is if he were to be considering that what kind of potential changes would he be thinking about discussing, or for staffing or for payment. As always, we know there's challenges in doing the important work of leadership for today's learners and today's educators. And so his team will share with us a little bit about how he's fostering that collaborative culture, even though when there's challenges in place. And then some recommendations for our listeners today, which might be superintendents or other district leaders, or maybe boards of education that want to do this same type of positive collaboration with teacher groups. I believe Bill has joined us. Bill, can you just say hello for a second? We'll see if you got your audio.
And we're here with you. That's Dr. David Hill that's just joined us. David, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you, David. David's our Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, and again, a member of our team who is at our locals or at a state conference right now, but he'll also be giving some examples to help everybody out to see how we work with teacher unions.
Thank you, David, so much for taking time out of the important work that you're doing there with other leaders, and we're glad you're with us today. At this time, and we can hear you great, and you've connected really well, too. So this time, Bill, I'll turn it over to you to lead this discussion for us, okay?
Thank you, Ann. You know, Ann, certainly when we think about working with teacher unions, there's certainly so much that what we're going to share with you are some common sense items of how we work with how we work with parents, boards of education, students, certainly with a great deal of respect. Certainly developing positive relationships, all of those things are just essential. But one of the things that we saw as an earlier question asked of us was, as superintendent or our leadership team, have we had opportunity? What are those opportunities that we've had to work with our teacher unions? And certainly we meet with them, our leadership, on a monthly basis. That's a set meeting. So though we have a legal binding written contract, that contract doesn't mean anything unless it's a live contract, that we meet with them as often as necessary, because we're not waiting for something to go wrong, but we want to be proactive. So we have regular meetings, we talk about issues, we talk about events, we talk about activities. Many of our teacher leaders in our association are also part of a number of committees. I know Marie touch base on that. They may be on, Dr. Hill has a facility committee, and some of our teacher leaders are in there. We have a district leadership team that helps make recommendations to the Board of Education. So we have teachers, administrators, union leaders, board members, and to make a variety of recommendations. For instance, we just had a recommendation on our calendar, and everybody collaboratively has worked together. So, and the last thing is, many of, including myself, we do certainly negotiate contracts with our teacher unions. So those are some of the opportunities that we've had to work with them. Dr. Hoffman, Marie will talk to you a little bit about a professional development committee that we have that she works with teacher leaders on.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. As you know, professional learning is a major undertaking in any school district. And if we want professional learning to be successful, we certainly don't want teachers to feel that learning or learning opportunities are things that are done to them. They want to have an active role and be active participants in the activities and in the learning experiences. So we have invited and include our leadership team, our association leadership team, on what we have titled a PD, or Professional Development Steering Committee. And their purpose on this committee is to provide input on the direction of professional learning for the school year. And that's not just in terms of institute days or teacher work and learning days, but it's about your daily opportunities for learning experiences. And they have their ears to the ground, and they know what our teachers are looking for, but they can also provide input to the teachers in regard to common goals and objectives that we all have in regard to student learning. So we think it's very important to include our leadership, both district leadership and association leadership, in planning learning experiences for our teachers.
And another question was asked about the approaches. And again, I don't want to make this seem so simple, but really, as you're developing relationships, to us it's communicate, do it often, do it systemically. And if we have a monthly meeting and there are some issues or concerns that occur before that monthly meeting, many of us, might be Dr. Hill, might be Dr. Hoffman, Mr. Schlorf, we will contact them and meet with them that day or the next day or the morning before school or after school. So instead of saying, well, we'll talk to them in 3 weeks, again, that communication is such a key. We meet, as I said, on a very regular basis. We want to share with them information that the Board of Education is thinking about. We don't want them to hear something at a board meeting or read about something in the local newspaper. That just is a direction we're moving in. So we will provide them information. Certainly they come to our board meetings or they're going to get it from the local newspaper. We want to give them that heads up. We want them to know the directions of what we're thinking. We don't want our teacher union leaders surprised, because if they're surprised and their membership says to them, did you read this? Did you know about this? And they say, no, we didn't. Then they're saying, well, you really don't have a good relationship with that district administration. We want to provide them always with a heads up. It may be something so simple on there's a human resources issue where a teacher's evaluation didn't go very well. We still share that information. We don't wait for that to fester and then to come back up to our meeting. So we're direct with them. We think it's important that we have extremely positive relationships with them. You know, Ann, you may remember we went down to Mooresville twice. One time was for a COSIN activity. But what we did is we brought our teacher union leaders. So prior to going one-to-one, 3-4 years ago, we explained this to them. They had a lot of excitement about this. So it wasn't something they were going to read in the paper or hear about it later on, but they were part of it. And we asked them, share some of your, how do you think this would work? And we said, we're going to go down to North Carolina. We're going to spend a couple of days down there. We actually, as we said, went down there a couple of times. They were honored. They were thrilled that we said, we want you to go along with us. We redesigned an evaluation system. That's happening all across the country. Big thing here in Illinois. The Danielson framework is very important. But to us was, let's get them involved. Let's meet with them. When we create surveys with their input, their feedback, so that they're getting the information that will help them understand that this is working. So again, participate in a lot of joint committees, a lot of district leadership opportunities, Tony with technology, curriculum and instruction, but those are a variety of the approaches that we have taken.
Yeah, and I just wanted to real quick kind of chat a little bit more as Dr. Shields talked. You know, as we take these big steps, especially with big either curriculum shifts, is it our personalized one-on-one learning with our digital devices, you know, it really comes to, are we including them on the decisions? Because we know that as we work with our teachers and our union leaders, that the best way to get buy-in and to get their support, which is going to endow really, you know, push or can even hinder some of the ways that we're moving, is to get them involved and to get them excited for it. So I know Dr. Shields talked a lot about when we took our union leaders to Mooresville. They were as excited, if not more excited, than anybody else on the trip, because they would start to sit down with us and say, well, could we do this? What about this? What about this? So we were building some of that excitement in them, which then went down to the rest of the teachers. So by doing that, not only did we get, you know, some of the key stakeholders in the, you know, teacher unions on board, but we were able to get that excitement passed all the way through the district, and really making our initiatives, you know, a huge success, because they knew that the excitement wasn't just coming from the district administrators, but it was coming from everybody. You know, I know Dr. Shields and Dr. Hoffman are going to talk a lot about, you know, we're all here for one reason, and that's the kids. And so as we build that with the union leaderships and ourselves, that's really what it's about.
Thank you, Tony. And one of the other questions that we want to respond to was if District 93 were to consider an initiative such as CMS Opportunity Culture, how would you approach the teacher groups about potential changes? What would that look like? And again, probably not a lot of difference from what we talked about. Actually, we were so excited. That was such a wonderful opportunity that was afforded to our school district, and it sounded like with collaborating with the other 14 districts, it was just a great opportunity. But when we came back from what we learned, we're a high-achieving district. We do very, very well. But we do have one school that there have been some challenges academically. And we actually have already begun the conversation. And, you know, we started off with a small meeting, and we're talking about the school, and they know that there are some concerns from the state with not making the adequate yearly progress. And we talked to them, what do you think? And we heard things that we thought we might hear. Well, it might be the parents, it might be the community, it might be the students. We heard even, well, maybe it's the administration leadership. Mm-hmm. But as we got into the discussion, we talked about, let's talk about the staff. Let's talk about the assessments. Let's talk about what the data is telling us. Let's go into all the different pieces. Let's talk about our other schools that have some similar demographics, that these are not concerns. And so again, we started laying the groundwork, though we're not going to do this immediately. We're saying, you know, we may need to talk about moving certain people in and out. We may need to talk about looking at a different stipend or a different salary if we're going to move some of our top teachers who can collaborate and understand some of our goals. The reception we got was extremely positive. Now again, it was a very preliminary discussion, but I think it was that sitting down and just talking to them at a face-to-face as people. And that's who they are. Again, as we mentioned, they want the same thing for our kids that we want. Now, sometimes we all get clouded. So sometimes as superintendents, we might forget why we got into business, and sometimes as a union leader, you might forget. So we have to remind each other. But again, you know, the most important thing, you better understand your contract. If you don't understand your contract, you better understand that before having the conversations. Again, you need to communicate immediately if you're going to make a change with this. And again, directly with them. You don't want to do this through the Board of Education. You don't want to do this through the newspaper or through parents. So it's important. Everybody wants that respect, and our teachers need that. Again, they want what's best for our children. We need to remember that. And we do need to, as Tony talked about, we need to be able to not only, before sharing a plan with them, say, what do you think? How would you do this? Tell us what you think. And as I said, we've already started that conversation. And again, though they were telling us things we thought we might hear, it went in a full circle that it came back to say, yeah, you know what, that might make some sense. Yeah, we can see how that might work. Yes, we would have to talk and communicate with our membership. But we felt very supportive. If that's the direction we go with this next year, at least the groundwork has been raised. And we have a fourth question that have been shared with us, in that what recommendations would you make for other superintendents, district leaders, or board members to foster positive collaboration? And again, I think we've kind of covered some of that already, but so excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but you know, you can't start off with, you know, next year I'm saying we had a great year with our union leadership, and I start off next year saying it's going to be another great year. Every year is different. The one thing with our union leadership, and I'm sure others that are online would agree, they're not in there. I've been in the district 24 years. Marie's been in the district 28 years. We've been around in our positions, so there's that stability. And many of their union leadership, they're there as a year or maybe 2 years. Sometimes you see somebody in 3 years. So their membership is changing constantly. So you have to remember that each and every year you have to develop that relationship with them. Provide those opportunities for them to give input. That's human nature. Sometimes people say, you're giving your unions too much authority. What are you doing? They're going to make the wrong decision. they're teachers, they're good people. But in any business, in any source of life, we all would like to have some input. As a parent, my children want to have input into family decisions. So we have to remember that with our teachers and our unions. Give them those opportunities. We all want that. Communicate, and I could say that 6 more times. Keep your promises. Remember what you've promised. Don't say something and 6 months later say, I don't remember that. So keep notes. We keep a lot of notes between our meetings so we remember what we talked about. We have agendas and we keep minutes. We also share those minutes with the membership, all of the other teachers. We weren't doing that at first, and sometimes what we were hearing is, as I visited a school, or Murray Hoffman would visit a school, or Dr. Hill, somebody'd say, when are you going to talk about that issue? And we're thinking, we already solved this. So we help our leaderships, we give them the forums, that it's a joint in our newsletters that go out. Here's what the issues were, here's what we discussed, here's our action plans. So we communicate is so important. Keeping those promises. Following through, something so simple. If you say, we're going to do this, if you don't follow through, you lose trust. And that trust usually causes those union, board issues that happen. Meet regularly, face-to-face is right. What Tony has helped set us up is that if we can't meet with everybody at once, certainly we live stream. We just had a live stream town hall meeting 2 nights ago with our entire community. Sometimes we do it specifically for our internal stakeholders, so in other words, just our teachers. We have started off, I'm sure many of the people online have done the same things. We have started off Institute days, where we start off digitally, whether it's FaceTime or Google Hangout or whatever. So a way, instead of having everybody come together and sit in an uncomfortable auditorium and drive back to their home schools, why not help them right there? We also have to find time, again, these are people just like us. We all like to laugh, we all like to celebrate, and we have to provide opportunities of recognizing their contributions. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Hoffman just to follow through a little bit more with this.
When we think about such big organizational changes, what we've, as a district, have been through in the past couple of years, moving to the one-to-one, one of the best things I think Dr. Shields did was in bringing in the union leadership. Instead of focusing on our differences, we focused on common goals. So when we're talking about student performance and we're talking about the challenges that teachers face every day with children of poverty or our subgroups, and we ask the question, how can we work together to meet the needs of these students and to prepare these students for success? And the teacher leaders will share their ideas with us, and then we can come back and say, well, we've been to Mooresville and we see what's happening there. We've been to North Carolina. We've seen some projects and wonderful opportunities for these students in other places. Would you like to learn more? And we get them excited, we get them curious about it, but we bring them into the conversation and we base those beginning conversations on common goals.
And also, certainly when we do have our meetings, we certainly make sure that we have some chocolate, we have some food. We make sure that if the superintendent's going to have a cup of tea or coffee, that we provide all that. So again, we want to do this and make this as a very informal way, and certainly we're discussing some really tough topics. You know, and another question that has kind of come our way was this whole idea of, you know, what are the challenges? And what we just talked about for the last 25 minutes, the people online may say, well, it sounds like they have no challenges. Life is just perfect for District 93. How do we sign up? That's not a fact. It's not perfect. We certainly have challenges. I mentioned earlier that, you know, union leadership is typically on there, and ours are 2 co-presidents. One's on every other year, one comes on and one goes off. Just recently they've stabilized that, and it was kind of exciting, and give me this in a fun way. They just had their re-election, and one of their leaders said, I'd like to join more. We've got this strategic plan we just designed, and they elected her for kind of an unprecedented third time in a row. So that'll bring some stability, but we don't have that. And so it was kind of comical. She shot me an email last night and said, guess what, you're stuck with me for a couple more years. And I emailed back and says, I don't know if it's worse, I think you're the one who's stuck with me. And but I did, after we did some kidding around, I said, congratulations, that's a tribute to your leadership for people to want to work with you on that. So again, to have those times that you can kid, you can talk to them and develop those positive relationships. But sometimes we've had problems where, you know, here we are going through a strategic plan, and we're in the third year, and we have a new leader on there, and he or she, for whatever strange reason, is not focused on what we've done the last couple of years and is coming on with a brand new agenda, or maybe hasn't read all the different things we've accomplished or understand our directions, and now we might spend some time going over that again. And that sometimes you need a lot of patience. It could be frustrating. But if you don't put the time into it each year, you're just going to pay that price later on. Their training, we certainly go through an awful lot of training. First of all, working with COSIN and C4I has just been outstanding. As I said, we came back so excited from Charlotte. But we have more of those opportunities. We can't pull them out of the classroom all the time. I know that some districts that are probably online have their union leadership that they're a full-time position. They're not in the classroom. We have 330 teachers. It's a smaller district, so they are full-time teachers. They're not full-time union leaders. So the sophistication of their leadership, they're either working through the Illinois Education Association or the Illinois American Federation of Teachers. They may not have the consistency. So we have to understand that they may not have that same training. They're outstanding teachers typically. They are teachers that work well with their team members. They work well within their school setting. But these are teachers, if it's a kindergarten teacher who's now the union co-president, she doesn't know middle school people. Mm-hmm. She's not in all those schools. She might have had an assignment in 2 or 3 of the buildings, but not all 9 of the buildings. So the point that we have to understand is that their sophistication and training may not be the same. So we have to reach out and help them, not try to show them up, not suggest they're not leaders. They are leaders, but they have a big job. And their job, you know, as superintendent, they may not like what I say, but I have the position behind me. If they don't like what they say as union leadership, they get tremendous amount of flack and criticism. So we have to understand where they're coming from. And again, that communication is just essential. And do we have more questions?
Well, first, Dr. Shields, I wanted to share with you and your team, from listening, it sounds like you've been completely transparent and built transparency into your collaborating, you know, proactively with those teacher groups. I really heard a lot about building trust with those teachers and recognizing them for what they bring to the table, and I can imagine that many of them are also parents of students that are in your district. Quickly, I wanted to shift to Dr. Hill for just a moment and see if he had any comments that he wanted to add to what you've indicated. I know that he works strongly with curriculum and instruction. Dr. Hill?
I would echo what Dr. Shields and Dr. Hoffman and Mr. Schlorf said. We work collaboratively as a team and believe very passionately about being transparent with our teaching group because we all do truly want the exact same thing, which is the best educational experience for our students.
Thank you, sir. One question that I have that, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming that your district is working with Common Core state standards and that transition. I believe Marie and I had a couple of conversations about that when we were in Charlotte, and so just interested how you work with those teacher groups with that large of an implementation taking place and giving them input to that. So I'll turn it over to Marie for a second. Marie?
Oh, hi. We're very lucky in this district that we have a common collaboration time. And it's been set up for years where the district folks can come into the buildings and meet with grade level teams twice a month. So it's in smaller, intimate sessions that we can talk with our teachers. But I have to be honest, it has taken us a couple of years to really get to the root of the instructional shifts in the Common Core. And we find that our teachers are looking for models, and our teachers are looking for folks to come alongside them and show them what it looks like. So we've had to kind of shift the way we do professional learning in the district and combine the information sharing with the co-teaching and modeling. So again, we're very lucky in that we can share information with teachers through large group institute days, but also through small group and very intimate sessions where we can sit down and talk with teachers at particular grade levels in buildings.
Thanks, Marie. Bill?
And just a little bit, because we had some questions when we were in Charlotte, we want to talk a little bit about the one-to-one. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
You know, and we've been looking into this for the last 4 or 5 years. And again, Dr. Hill may jump in, and Marie, because they've been very instrumental with the implementation of this. Tony Schlorf is going for his administrative degree, so he had to leave to get to graduate class. But what we've done is we've done this in a multi-year rollout. And so we did a lot of research, looking at devices, looking at processes. Certainly Mooresville has been a model for so many of us across the country. Certainly COSIN has been a tremendous help with us. We were in the Teaming for Transformation in the state of Illinois, across the country. And ISTE is a great organization. So there's a number of places that really have been helped us. We went to other site visits in the state of Illinois, out of Illinois. And what we decided we were going to do is provide that one-to-one experience from preschool through 8th grade. And people may have questions later about preschool. We actually just designed a brand new state-of-the-art, very 21st century preschool building that we just opened last August. But nonetheless, we have iPads from preschool through 2nd grade. We are using Apple Air Max from 3rd grade through 8th grade. Right now, we have all grade levels, of the 10 grade levels, I should say. We have 3 more to roll out, so we'll be complete by next year. And that will be 4th grade, 5th grade, as well as 8th grade. We do have one of our schools that's completely one-to-one, and it's actually a school with one of our highest poverty levels. And it's wonderful. Children from kindergarten through 5th grade just involved. Right now it's more of a blended model, but it's amazing what those teachers are able to do. In a minute here I'll have Dr. Hoffman talk a little bit about the training, and I'm going to ask Dr. Hill right after her to maybe join in a little bit about how we've kind of rolled out, had parent meetings, and got the parents involved and all that. So I'm going to turn it over to Murray Hoffman first, and then she'll turn it over to Dr. Hill to talk a little bit about how we got parents involved in meetings and the actual rollouts, and it's very systemic. So here's Dr. Hoffman.
Well, we are lucky to have a collaboration time. We don't have coaches, and I know that a lot of districts who may be listening have instructional coaches, but we don't. So we have designed and implemented all of the PD ourselves, and that would be the 5-person team that is the curriculum department. But in doing so, we have seen such growth with our teachers, and again, in linking what I'm talking about to building trust and bringing in your teacher voice. Last year, we had our very first Tech Academy over the summer. The majority of courses were taught by the 5 of us, as well as some representatives from publishing companies and the digital partners that we have. This year, we have twice as many courses, we have only one of us is teaching one course. The rest of the courses are being taught by teachers. So we have such teacher buy-in that teacher leaders are sprouting up everywhere, despite the fact that we really don't have coaches at the building level. So it's fabulous as we have helped to bring our teacher leaders and our associations, and we've gotten them involved. Now they're stepping up to the plate, and they are teaching courses. We have a group of middle school folks who will be presenting at the middle school conference next year. So in a year, we've got folks presenting at national conferences, and we've got double the instructors for our Tech Academy that are teachers. So we're really pleased about that. Again, if you bring your association people in the beginning, and you build trust with your staff, you're going to see the involvement and the buy-in as a result.
And Dr. Hill, could you explain a little bit about how we had the rollouts at the various buildings, the parent meetings, some of the particulars behind the devices? I'm sure that would be of an interest to people online.
I'll be happy to, sir. Thank you. As many of us have shared, being part of a systemic organization is certainly worthwhile as you look at different kinds of projects, and this was certainly one of those projects. As we thought about this, as Dr. Shields said 3 to 4 years ago, systemically we looked at every aspect of it, not just putting the device in the student's hands. We've heard from a lot of districts who have gone through this process, and one of the problems they run into, they hand out the devices and they don't have the necessary or the correct backbone to handle all the internet needs that they have. So we took care of that first. We looked at it kind of like building a home. We took care of the infrastructure, the back end, the bandwidth needs, then we chose a device, and then we implemented that device in a very systematic way to ensure we did not overload the system, but to also provide enough training and support for the staff who were going to deliver these devices to students and be able to implement instructional techniques and curriculum opportunities. As a result of that, we had parent meetings to outline, number one, what the purpose of this was, what our vision is, how it aligned to our strategic plans and goals and objectives, what the curricular opportunities would look like for their students, how they would benefit from these, and then of course talking about the different responsibilities and the shared responsibility between students, parents, and the district with regards to these devices. As Dr. Shields mentioned, our students in 4th grade through 8th grade take the devices home, so they have them all the time. During the school day, our staff does a wonderful job of making sure those devices are taken care of and treated properly, but also we had to have the parents on board to ensure that once they go home in the evenings and the weekends, there's that shared responsibility between taking care of the device and using the device appropriately. Our students have been absolutely wonderful with these devices. They treat them as if they're their own. They believe the importance of this tool, but we also highlighted to our parents, this is simply a tool. We do not ever anticipate students being in front of a computer device for 8 hours a day. It's a tool to help them reach new levels in their educational achievement. Parent meetings, again, the first parent meeting, first go around, parents were a little bit anxious, a little bit leery of what we were trying to do. As we talked more about that, they got more and more excited. The second year around, as they were rolled out this school year, parents were very excited. How quickly can I get to the meeting? I want the child to have the device now. After the first year, we had students turn in their devices in June. They were very upset to have to get rid of their device. We told them we'd get back to them in August. We actually got back to the students before the school year began on a couple Saturdays where they would come in on Saturday and get their device. And to see the joy on their faces, they were getting these devices back, was so outstanding because they knew the power that these devices had, how they could impact their learning. So it's certainly been a journey. We have learned along the way. We by no means have answered every question out there, have been able to solve every situation that goes on, but as they have come up, we have been able to sit down as a team systematically and figure out how we can address these changes or address these issues to not impact instruction or not in any way harm our students by not having them have the devices.
No, Ann, I'm just going to follow the last thing on our one-to-one is certainly you need to have the buy-in. It's not going to go anywhere unless your Board of Education supports it. Thanks to Dr. Hill, Dr. Hoffman, Tony Schlorf, we certainly spent a couple times talking to them about our direction, where we're going. The Board of Education has some tremendous trust in the administration here and was 100% sold. But what we had to do is certainly make sure that we give them updates on a 2-3 times a year. What's new? What's happening? So we don't want to be caught off by surprise, and we say, well, we'll talk to them in June and tell them how successful the year is. We want to make sure that we're touching base with them before this. The general public, most people were on board, but you had a lot of people saying, so you're going to give a device to my child to bring home, and you don't think he's going to lose it, or you don't think it's going to be stolen, or you don't think he's going to break it or sit on it. And again, Dr. Hill was outstanding talking to the parents. And again, I don't know if we've lost more than 2 devices or 3 in the 2.5 years. So the kids really, thanks to the administration, the building principals, the teachers, the kids are so proud of having these devices. They want to take care of it. It's kind of like that cell phone. They take care of that cell phone. They don't want to lose these devices. But we did have a few parents. We had a few people, that most, I'm sure, people that are online right now, 75%, 80% of the people that pay taxes, they don't have kids in your district. At least that's the case here. So we wanted to put out a very comprehensive public relations on this. We got a couple of blogs and a couple of people talking to us and saying that this is a waste of money, this will never work. You know, when I was in school, we didn't have these devices. We don't need this. Teach them the basics, teach them the times tables and basic arithmetic, and they're going to be fine. So we were able to put in things very comprehensively, and it was amazing that those email messages, those communications went away quickly. And we did it in a fun way, too. We were a PC platform before moving to the Apple platform. So thanks to creativity from people like Marie and Tony, when we were handing out devices and giving some preliminary training to our teachers, they called it an Apple turnover day. And the staff were provided with actual Apple turnovers to eat. When we had parent meetings, we asked our teachers, would you like to come out? We didn't offer to pay them. We didn't tell them this was extra duty. They came out and supported it. And thanks again to the creativity of Marie and the tech department, Tony, the teachers were wearing T-shirts that says, I personalize. And they love those T-shirts. And it's amazing. And they also, either through YouTube or a podcast, they will show the rollout of the devices to the kids. And you see the kids, you think that this is New Year's Eve, the celebration, the balloons, the excitement of the kids. You just see the smiles on their faces. And almost to the school, each one of those teachers have those kids, either digitally or sometimes the old-fashioned way, write letters to the Board of Ed, which really means a big difference.
Sure.
We have a number of our presentations, our board meetings, 3 times a year are held at a school. So this year at each school, there have been a number of the kids leading the board, teaching the Board of Education how to use technology. And of course, we have board members from their 30s to their 70s, and it's amazing and how excited they are. We have another meeting coming up at a school, and again, they're going to be showing some iMovies and showing, actually, we have some kids in our a very structured, specialized education program. They're going to actually demonstrate some of the digital learning things that they have come up with. So we've tried to make sure that our community is seeing this on a regular basis, sending out a lot of press releases to newspapers, and just making sure that this doesn't get in the background or that this doesn't become an issue, because again, 75% of our stakeholders, our children aren't in our schools. The parents are all buying into it, but we have to make sure that they're going to support us, because in Illinois, in our district, a good portion of our revenue comes from property taxes. And we want to make sure that they're getting the best for those taxes. And that was a little bit of a synopsis, maybe too much information on our one-to-one.
Well, thank you, Dr. Shields, and to your entire team for sharing the experiences that you've had. Just a couple of notes that I've been writing as I've been listening is, it seems that you have a very much of an open dialogue with all of your stakeholders, whether they be teacher unions, whether they be parents, whether they be students, maybe they are taxpayers that don't have children. that you continue to foster an open dialogue, and I can only imagine that that has really built a lot of trust. At the end of the day, as we all know, this work around collaboration for innovation is toward improving teaching and learning for today's learners and for today's educators and for their teachers. So we thank you so much for joining with us today. Let me get this other last slide up here. To your entire team, there we go. Panasonic Foundation and COSN thanks Dr. Shields, Dr. Hill, Dr. Hoffman, Tony, who's headed towards getting more degrees and maybe a doctorate someday. He's very much a kindred spirit and an important part of your team. But thank you so much for being so candid with our conversation today around building proactively good conversations with those people that are most important to our kids, and those are those teachers. For those of you that are listening today, or if you're watching at another time, Dr. Shields and his team for 1 month will respond to your questions in our online community of practice, and I'll be setting that up soon. Thanks again to Community Consolidated School District 93 of Illinois. Thanks much.
Our pleasure.